What's up guys, my name is Andy. In this video, I want to go over the mistakes that I've made, whether it be parts that I purchased or the way I installed something or didn't install something, parts I messed up while I was doing the installation, that kind of stuff. I want to go over that, and maybe some of my mistakes can help you guys so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So we're going to start off the bat, right off the top with number one mistake was buying this car. This specific car, really. I wanted a 66 Fastback. That's what I got. I've had 3 66 Mustangs. This is my third one. I like that year. It's my favorite year. But this specific car, when I bought it, I drove all the way over to Minnesota to get this car. And the reason why is there wasn't anything on my half of the country that was a better price or better condition or whatever was going on. I just could not find anything on the West Coast that met my budget and met the criteria I was looking for. So I drove all the way to Minnesota to get this car, and I shouldn't have bought this car. This car was overpriced, I think, for what it was. And today, so I paid $27,500 for this car. Today, I think you could buy the same car for $20 to $25 in the condition that it was in, not the condition it's in now, right? But it was all there was, so I drove over and got it, and of course there's things that the previous owner didn't tell me about this car, but that's par for the course, right? That's how that goes. I got the car, got it home, and I was immediately just kind of overwhelmed with how much work I had to do, all of the stuff that I didn't notice, and I was there buying the car. But you know, the silver lining is you just chip away at it, and over time, you know, you get the car farther along, and it's now where you want it to be, or it's getting closer. I still have a lot of stuff I want to do, but again, at the time, I think buying this car was a mistake, but I'm glad that I have it now, and I want to keep going with this car. So the next mistake on my list, early on when I got this car, I replaced the door hinge. The bushings were worn out, and I had a leftover hinge from a previous Mustang, so I just figured I'll just use that and replace it. I heard a lot from you guys saying that I just replaced the bushings, and that probably would have been an easy task, but I had that door hinge, so I just swapped it out. Well, I tried to take a shortcut, and I even pointed out in that video, I did not remove the fender to get to it. I tried to unbolt everything and kind of get underneath the fender and get to it. It ended up being worse that way because I ended up bending the fender and damaging it, chipping the paint, and now I have to deal with that. That fender doesn't fit perfectly up by the windshield, and when I'm gonna have to eventually deal with that part because the fender's bent a little bit. On this, I should have taken the fender off to replace it, and I didn't do that. So that's on the list of mistakes that I made. I should have done it right to begin with. Another mistake I made was buying the wheels that I have on this car. I like the wheel design, the American Torque thrust wheels. They're a particular design that I think look good on these cars. Everybody has their own opinion, but I bought 16-inch wheels for this car, and I shouldn't have done that. I had 15s on my previous car, and I think it looked better. And to me, I think a classic car looks better with more tire and less wheel, unless you go the other end of it and you get like 18s or something like that, and then you're dialing the car into be more of a track car. Then I think it looks better with a skinny tire and a big wheel. But this middle ground stuff, like this 16-inch wheel that I have, I'm not a big fan of it, and I chose it because the tire that I wanted, I could not get the size I wanted in a 15-inch tire. But I could get it in 16, so I bought the 16-inch wheels. It's not what I wanted. I'm gonna have to fix that one of these days. I had the 15-inch wheels on the previous car, and I had the same brakes, and they cleared, so there's no issues on that. And these 16-inch wheels don't do me any favor for larger brakes. I can put larger brakes on the car, but they'll still fit with a 15-inch wheel, or you have to go to a 17-inch wheel. So having these 16s doesn't do me any good there. So another mistake that I wish I wouldn't have made. The headers that I have for this car are shorties. They're JBA shorties, part number 1650S. I bought them because I got a really good deal on them. I paid almost half. And anytime you can get a 50% off sale on something, sometimes it'll drive you to buy that part, maybe when you didn't want it or don't need it. And I really wish I just would have saved and purchased Tri-Wise or I had full-length headers, the 4-to-1s, on my previous car, and they hung down too low. Now, a part of that was the specific header that I had. Again, I got those on a really good deal, but they hung down too low, and I was afraid of that happening on this car. So I went with shorties because I know I wouldn't have that issue at all. But I had those shorties when I had the 289 in here, and it was fine at the time. But now, those shorties, they might be holding back my 347 a little bit, and I'd like to go up to some tri-wides or some 4-to-1s, and I'm gonna have to address that down the road. But again, it was a decision made off of the deal at the time, and it sucked me in and got me, and I wish I would have just bought the right ones to begin with. So another mistake, or maybe a choice that I shouldn't have done, was the brake pedal. When I bought this car, it had an automatic in it, even though this was a manual car to begin with. This car had an automatic in it, and so the brake pedal, it was a wider brake pedal for an automatic. Fine. But when you put a manual transmission in here, that wider pedal is in the way of the clutch pedal. And the right thing to do is just buy the manual brake pedal and you install it and everybody's happy. Well, I thought I'd be clever and I would cut down the automatic pedal to save me a couple bucks. Made a video out of it. And you buy the brake pad, the pedal pads as a set, and they only fit one way and only go on one side. So I cut the brake pedal to the size of the pad, so I knew that it would fit, and it works, and everything's fine. It works great. There's no problems there. But boy, I got a lot of heat from you guys on that. I don't know if it's because you just didn't like me cutting corners, or I didn't do a good enough job, or what. But I was pretty proud of it, and it worked. I mean, everything works great. The pedals are still doing their thing. But looking back, I probably should have bought just the manual brake pedal and been done with it, and save all that heat from you guys. So a while back, actually quite a while back, I had a problem where the wheel fell off my car, and I made a whole video about it way down the road because I was kind of embarrassed about it. It was my fault. I didn't secure the wheel onto the hub like I should have. And I talk about it in the video and everything, what happened and why I didn't do a good job with it. When it happened, I was so embarrassed. I didn't take hardly any pictures. I didn't take any video of it. I wish I would have. I wish I had more documentation of that. But the mistake I made was not paying attention to putting that wheel on. There's a little bit of a lip on the stud, and I caught the wheel on the lip and didn't fully seat it. And it ended up costing me, I had to buy a new wheel, new tire, because when it fell off, it shredded the big old cuts into the tread of the tire from the fender liner and stuff like that, the sharp edges in there. It scratched all kinds of the inside of the wheel because the drum was spinning on the wheel as the wheel was spinning. Or I'm sorry, not the drum. The wheel was spinning on the drum as it was going down the road, and it just shredded the inside of that wheel. And the wheel's done, it's toast. I was able to limp the car back home, but and then I busted one of the 5 studs, but I wanted to replace all 5 of them just because I thought they were compromised, and it just wasn't worth it. And we're only a couple bucks to replace those studs. So anyways, that was another mistake I made, was not securing that wheel on there, and I got really lucky that wheel didn't do more damage than it did. In fact, it did so much damage to the fender. I'm gonna have to fix that, and that's gonna be coming up, fixing the cracks and stuff in the Bondo and fiberglass of the fender, because again, going back to that previous owner, didn't tell me about all the work he had done in the fender. But whatever, we'll get it fixed. So when I bought this tilt column, I worked a deal with I Did It columns, and they were fantastic. They helped me out. I still paid for it, but they gave me a discount on it, which is great. Helped me out. But I did my own research on the one that I thought I needed for the car, and this is my fault. I gave them the wrong part number. I gave them one that was about 1 inch shorter. The column and stuff is about 1 inch shorter, so it doesn't stick through the firewall. The shaft for the steering does, but the column tube doesn't. It just goes right to the firewall, and so there's a hole in the firewall because it doesn't go all the way through. And it's not causing any problems. It still works, but I just wish I would have paid a better attention. I tried to point that out in the video, that it was my mistake, and that if you guys are going to buy the same column, just pay attention that the length of the column shaft, the tube, needs to be the right one to fit your car. And I put the correct part number in that video, which one you should buy, but hopefully that nobody will make that same mistake. Another mistake that I did was the exhaust wrap that I did. So I've got a hydraulic clutch on here now, and I've got a hydraulic line that runs right next to the not the downpipe, but where it comes off the headers and it comes down to the H-pipe part. That line runs right next to it, and I got the header wrap stuff. It's adhesive backed, and it's just a sheet of it, and you're supposed to actually put it on the hydraulic line, but I put it on the header, not thinking about that the header is going to get really hot and cook that adhesive in there, and it stinks. I can still smell it every once in a while. The heat from the headers, or from the H-pipe, heating up that adhesive part of the wrap, and it smells like burning plastic, and it's stuck on there now. That's not coming off, so it's fine. I don't have any problem, even though it's not, the hydraulic line's still working and everything. But that was something that I'm just an idiot. I didn't even think about it. There's no instructions with it. I never even put any effort into thinking about what you're supposed to do to put that on the exhaust or the line or whatever you're trying to cover, and oh well, it's covered, but mistake. Another mistake, so I put on a higher amperage alternator, and when that kicks on, when the fans kick on, it draws that power, and the alternator goes to work, does its thing, but because it's such a high load on the motor, on the engine, sorry, I get a lot of heat for that too, motor and engine, it makes the idle bog down. And when you're driving, it's fine, you don't really notice it very much, but when you're sitting at a light and that kicks on, the fans kick on, makes the alternator do its thing, the car would just idle down to a bog to almost die and kill itself. So I installed a stepper solenoid, which they're typically made for people that have air conditioning systems, because when that AC pump kicks on, it puts more load on the belt system, bogs the motor down, engine down, and you put that in place, and it's just a little pusher that sticks out, and it just bumps the throttle just a little bit, just to give it just a little bit more gas, so it'll idle better and not, bog the car out. Well, the mistake was not installing that, because that's what it's supposed to do, but the mistake was I didn't do a good enough job setting the idle mixture screws. And the funny thing is I've got a whole video on how to set the idle mixture screws for these cars, or for these engines, for the Holly and the Edelbrock and stuff that I had. Clearly I didn't do good enough job, because when that thing kicks on, all I needed to do, I think it was like a quarter or a half a turn or something like that on the idle mixture screw. Fine, didn't need that solenoid anymore, so I took it off the car. But just something that if I'd have done a little bit better job paying attention to that stuff, I wouldn't need to spend the money on it and install it and stuff. So another mistake. So when I put this one wire alternator on here, it's clocked in a way that the terminal in the back is very, very close to the engine block, and so I'd have to pivot the alternator out away from the block so that wouldn't touch. I don't want those things to arc and break and ground out, right? So I'd have to pivot it way out. Well, that caused me to get a different belt and stuff. So as I've been chasing this stuff down, I finally figured out, okay, you guys mentioned you can clock these things, undo the screws on the back, and you can clock the back of it so that terminal is in a different spot. So I did that, not paying attention, didn't follow any instructions, didn't look any videos up, and I pulled the two halves apart, and there's the brushes on there are in some springs, and when I took that apart, it just came shooting out of there, and it was a small panic because I didn't know how I was going to get those back in place to get it back installed on the alternator halves put together. There's a access panel thing on the back that you can put a nail or something there to hold those in place, hold those brushes in place as you move things around, so you don't have to separate the halves. And again, mistake that I made. I was ready to buy a new alternator because I thought I had ruined it. I was never going to get it back together. I did get it back together, got it put back together, but I didn't really cover that in any kind of video. But just for those guys that have been following my channel a lot of you guys have pointed that out, and I did clock the back of that alternator, and but it was a mistake because I thought I had ruined it. So another mistake is not tightening the brake lines tight enough. When I did the rear brakes on this car, and I got brake fluid on the axle, and I did a video about that, how it really did ruin the paint on the axle. And you always hear that. Some of us never going to experience that, but when you do get brake fluid on the paint, it will ruin it, and it started to peel off and get down to the bare metal, and so I had to sand it all down and tape it off and paint it, and it looks like poop because it's not the same color that the axle is. I didn't know what the color was, so I just got a close enough color, and that's okay. I'm gonna do something different with that axle down the road anyways, but just a mistake that I should have paid attention when I was tightening that stuff up, that I didn't have that leaky brake fluid, and I wouldn't have had that problem. So just something when you guys are doing your brakes, just make sure everything's good and tight. So kind of the last one on the list here is something that's a mistake that I make every single video on all my videos. A lot of you guys have pointed it out, and the reason why I haven't done anything about it is the paint on this car is not great. It was not great on my last car. It was not great on the car before that. It was not an issue. So I didn't do anything about it, and I always lean against my fenders when I'm working in my engine bay, and I'm sure I'm scratching the paint with my buckle or whatever. I never put any fender covers on there, and I hear a lot from you guys about that. I need to do that, and you're right. You're absolutely right. I have plans for the paint on this car, so I'm not worried about this paint, but I'm gonna have to stop doing that. It's very easy just to walk up to the car and lean in there and start doing your thing without putting those fender covers on, and I need to get better about that. And once I get the car painted, I'm definitely gonna have to get some fender covers. But I hear you guys, and you're right. I'm gonna ruin the paint if I don't be careful, but this paint, it's not an issue. So, all right, guys. So that's it. That's a bunch of just a list of some of the mistakes that I've made on this car and maybe other cars. I'm hoping that some of this stuff will help you guys out, and that maybe you won't make the same mistakes that I did. This is something that things that I didn't, you know, whether it was my own ignorance, I didn't look into something, whether it was just I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, wasn't paying attention, and it's cost me. Some of these things I've had to do, I've had to fix some of this stuff, and it's cost me money. So I'm hoping that you guys can get take maybe one or two of these things and put it in your pocket and go, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to have that problem, or I want to fix that part or replace that thing because I wasn't paying attention or whatever. So hopefully that helps you guys out. All right, guys, if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. And if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out. And we'll see you in the next one.